Amadeus makes the experience of travel better for everyone everywhere by inspiring innovation, partnerships, and responsibility to people, places, and planet. Our technology powers the travel and tourism industry, inspiring more open ways of working, more connected ways of thinking, centered around the traveler. Our open platform connects the global travel and hospitality ecosystem, from startups to big industry players and governments too. Together, redesigning the travel of tomorrow. Amadeus, it's how travel works. Visit us to know more, amadeus.com.
A very warm welcome to the Skift India Travel Podcast. Today, joining me as my guest here is Nishant Kashikar, the Country Manager for India and Gulf at Tourism Australia. With Nishant today, we'll be discussing the impressive resurgence of Indian tourism to Australia and the strategies behind it. Welcome, Nishant.
Hi, Peden. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for joining in. And Nishant, to kick things off, India has emerged as the first country to not only recover but also surpass pre-pandemic levels of travel to Australia. Can you talk a little bit about, what contributed to this remarkable rebound?
All right, so let me first start with the five key highlights that we've witnessed ever since the borders have reopened. The first highlight has been the fact that India is today the fastest growing inbound market for Tourism Australia, and our arrivals are at par with those that we witnessed in 2019. So in
Mhm.
2019, we had 385,000 visitors. We've achieved that particular number in 2023. Also, during this journey, we have improved our ranking from being the seventh largest market for Tourism Australia to become the fifth largest market for Tourism
Fifth,
Australia.
yes. Mhm.
The second achievement has been on the spend front, where Indian tourists have contributed close to $2.2 billion, or if you were to translate that in Indian rupees, approximately 12,000 crore Indian rupees to the Australian economy. And this
Is
has
that
grown by
Australian dollars or US
2.2,
dollars?
2.2 billion Australian dollars, which
Okay.
translates into approximately 12,000 crore Indian rupees. And this
Mhm.
amount has increased by almost 20% as compared to pre-pandemic levels. So Indians are not just traveling, but also spending and contributing significantly to the Australian economy. The third achievement has been on the MICE front, where we have seen a significant surge in leads and travel for business events in Australia. So, be it Herbalife, be it the Rotary Convention, be it ICICI Prudential, HDFC Bank, various companies from the cement and the paint sector, we have seen almost five times more leads than what we witnessed in 2019. And the first three achievements has been primarily due to the fourth achievement, and that is around the aviation access into Australia. And I'm
Mhm.
really happy to share that total flight capacity into Australia has more than tripled as compared to pre-COVID levels. So pre-COVID, we had 8 direct flights from India to Australia. Today, as we speak, we have almost 28 flights, direct flights from India to Australia. And the success that we've achieved out of the Indian market is primarily because of that. And lastly, the fifth and the most important highlight or our achievement has been on the speed and ease of getting an Australian tourist visa.
Visa.
Uh,
Mhm.
the fact that there are no biometrics required, you do not have to stand in long queues outside the immigration offices or embassies. The entire process is 100% online and digitized, and the passport remains in your custody. You do not have to physically submit copies of your passport or your financial documents to a travel agent or to an or to the embassy. The entire process is 100% digitized and online, and the
Correct.
faster turnaround time for high quality lodgements is something that has worked in our favor. So tripling of direct aviation capacity, speed and ease of getting a visa, supported by a buoyant Indian economy, which has grown consistently over the past few years and expected to grow at almost between 6 to 8% over the next few years. I guess these factors have contributed to the growth of tourism from India to Australia. And also, there's a key thing that has uh, been an influential factor for this growth has also been the strengthening of the bilateral ties between Australia and India and the two countries across trade, investment, education, tourism. and the overall geopolitical ties between Australia and India are, are at an all-time high. And these factors, I mean, this has also been one of the key factor for such outstanding results that we have witnessed from the Indian market.
Correct, Nishant. I think, if, of course, the recovery has also been, the result of some really important back end work the two countries have been working to address. Right. Of course, you mentioned improved flight connections, and of course the visa problem, the visa ease of visa right now, because of course we've been constantly talking about how countries with easier entry rules tend to score well among Indian travelers. There are so many countries that have now made India, visa free entry for Indians.
And
Australia, of course, offers the 3 year. You have the 3 year multiple entry visa to
yes, I
tourists,
was
right?
just going to highlight
Yeah,
that
yeah, and then
the
you don't
the
need a
standard
physical
visa product.
document.
Yes. So standard visa
Yeah.
product is for a 3-year multiple entry visa, but for business travelers, thanks to the signing of the Migration and Mobility Agreement when Prime Minister Modi visited Australia, business travelers now get up to a 5-year multiple entry visa. So that enhances the chances of them traveling to Australia again, especially to
So
attend a
that's
business
three
event or a
years
MICE
for
convention.
tourists and 5 years for business tourists.
Up to 3 years and up to
Sorry,
5 years.
business
Yeah,
business visa. Yeah,
that's
okay.
right.
And also, the visa processing time has also been streamlined, right? I mean, because sometimes we know that our passports are just languishing in the embassies. So there has been, I remember you once talked about the fact that there have been some cases in which the visa has been processed in within 24 hours as well.
Absolutely. So, but this is more of an aberration, and it depends on the cases on hand at the Australian High Commission. But we have witnessed that, and this is something that our travel agency partners have shared with us, that high quality lodgements sometimes, in rare cases, are processed in as low as 24 to 48 hours as well.
And what is the standard visa processing time?
So the standard visa processing timelines are published on the Home Affairs website, and these vary based on seasonality. As we speak, 90% of the applications are processed in less than 2 weeks.
In less than 2 weeks. Okay. And of course, the increased connections that we've talked about, and we know how important geopolitical, relationships are between countries. It's also fascinating to see that not just the numbers, but the economic impact as well. Because, how has the Indian economy's performance influenced this surge? Especially since you mentioned the corporate events segment.
I guess it has a significant impact on our performance, given the fact that the Indian economy has grown at an average of 7 to 8% over the last 3 years. We are today the fastest growing large and emerging economy in the world. The number of middle class, or rather rich households in India are expected to increase from almost 56 million in 2020 to 169 million by 2030. So we are going to see potentially tripling of the rich households, those households who earn more than 30 lakhs um, rupees every year. That number is going to triple over the next decade, and the fact that we are the world's youngest democracy and have got one of the most youngest demography as well, with an average age of an Indian around 28 years, and the fact that from being the fifth largest economy in the world, we are poised to become the third largest economy in the world by FY 25 to 27 or 28. So all these factors are in favor of India, and I truly believe that there's no other market that offers so much opportunity than India at this point of time.
Amadeus makes the experience of travel better for everyone everywhere by inspiring innovation, partnerships, and responsibility to people, places, and planet. Our technology powers the travel and tourism industry, inspiring more open ways of working, more connected ways of thinking, centered around the traveler. Our open platform connects the global travel and hospitality ecosystem, from startups to big industry players and governments too. Together, redesigning the travel of tomorrow. Amadeus, it's how travel works. Visit us to know more, amadeus.com.
Interesting, Nishant, that you mentioned the middle class. When we launched the Skift Megatrends last week, we spoke about it. One of the mega trends was that the rise of the middle class in India and how they are fueling travel choices and making India the powerhouse that it is now in outbound tourism. I remember when we launched, when we spoke about the mega trends last year on India becoming the new China in the reordering of Asia travel. I had spoken to you and you had highlighted how, owing to the pent up demand for outbound travel, India was at that time the second biggest source market for Australia following New Zealand, following the reopening of borders around February. So, what is your take on the rising middle class fueling outbound aspirations for India?
So let me share some three insights, or these are in the form of travel trends that we are witnessing. The first
Mhm,
trend is around the generational shift that we are seeing in terms of how Indians are traveling. And we are seeing that young Indians are traveling at a much, much younger age. Our kids are traveling at a much younger age than uh, possibly when we travel or when our parents travel. And since India is a young demography, we are seeing there's significant increase in the number of trips that young Indians are going to embark on going forward. That's the first
mhm,
trend. The second trend is around the entire shift in our economy. We were previously a savings economy, but post COVID, we are
mhm.
seeing that Indians are splurging on their holidays. And this is a trend amongst the young Indian diaspora as well, who are not just earning at a much, much younger age, but also traveling at a much, much younger age. And this has resulted into more number of trips, an increased length of stay in travel, and therefore increased spend on travel related services. So that's the second trend. And the third trend is around the fact that Indians are now immersing in local experiences, and therefore we as a destination are trying to tap into the passion points of the new age Indian traveler. So Indians today are traveling for festivals, for sporting events, to witness and experience history, art, architecture, for food and wine related activities. So, tapping into the passion points of the Indian traveler is something that's going to help us to fuel the growth out of this market. So, the generational shift, a shift from being a savings to a splurging economy, and immersing in local experiences is something that's going to help us to drive the future of travel out of this Indian market, which itself presents a huge opportunity when it comes to a young demography.
It's interesting to understand the travel behavior of Indian travelers. Nishant, I also wanted to understand the profile of Indian travelers coming into Australia. And a good part of Australia's traveler profile is friends and family, with, I guess, a little less than 15% coming for holidays. How do you look to increase the share of holidayers coming into Australia?
I guess the biggest advantage that Australia has, uh, and we touched upon this point a bit earlier, is in terms of the increase in the number of Indians who have now called Australia home. And as we speak, there are almost a million Indians who have now settled in Australia, and 700,000 out of those were born in India. So there's the migration links between India and Australia has significantly increased. Second, the education ties between India and Australia have also improved, with over 100,000 Indian students now studying in various Australian universities. So the visiting friends and family segment has been a key driver and will continue to be a key driver as far as visitation from India to Australia is concerned. However, given the fact that we're going to see a huge shift in the rise of the Indian outbound traveler, and I guess McKinsey is predicting that we're going to have almost close to 80 to 90 million outbound travelers out of
Mhm.
India by 2040, and Kappa has predicted that we're going to have almost close to 50 million by
50
2030.
million.
And
Yes.
this growth will be fueled by the great Indian middle class. And as I said, these young aged Indians are going to travel for various events, for festivals, to to just experience a new destination every year. And I believe that the future of travel out of India to Australia will be driven by the holiday purpose of visitation. And we are already seeing some encouraging signs. Whilst we are at 70% of our pre-COVID visitation as far as holidays concerned, the spend of the Indian traveler in Australia for holidays has already reached our pre-COVID levels, and Indians have now spent more than 50% uh, of of the money on ground in Australia than what they spent pre-COVID. So we are already seeing a significant shift in the way Indians are holidaying in Australia, right? And given the rise of the Indian economy and the rise in the Indian outbound travel, we are definitely going to see an increase in the share of the holiday traveler from India to Australia.
Uh, Nishant, you spoke about the meetings, incentives, a crowd coming in from India to Australia as well. Another very significant contribution from this sector is the wedding tourism sector, where destination weddings are very popular among Indians. So, do you see that also coming into Australia, or are you doing anything to tap that market as well?
So Australia has always been a sought after destination for honeymooners, primarily been due to the fact that weddings in India usually take place between post October, November, December, and since Australia is in the southern hemisphere, it's summer, and you get much longer days when you travel to Australia during November, December, Jan, Feb, because that's Australian summer. We've seen a natural movement of or natural preference for Indian honeymooners to spend their first romantic sojourn in Australia. And it is one of the most preferred destination for honeymooners for Indians. So our focus has been primarily to target the honeymoon market, rather than inviting Indians to organize a wedding, because that's bound to happen because there's such a significant Indian diaspora in Australia, and
Okay.
they're definitely going to invite their friends and families from India to attend those weddings which are taking place in Australia. So again, as I said, our focus is more on the honeymoon market rather than on the weddings market because of the sheer time, price, and distance. You may possibly end up spending more time in the air rather than on ground in Australia if you were to organize a wedding in Australia.
Correct. Also, Nishant, of course, we've been talking about mice. We've talked about, how exponential growth among, Indians visiting Australia. What are your predictions for 2024? What is your target from India for 2024?
So, given the fact that India is going to continue to grow at 7.2% or in excess of 7% over the next few years, we are seeing a significant contribution of this been driven by the Indian corporates. And rewards and recognition is becoming such an important part of of all the corporates that we're going to see a significant rise um, in the incentive trips that Indians are going to embark on in 2024 and beyond. So our priorities are to maintain Australia's attractiveness as a preferred long-haul destination for MICE or business humans, as we call it. And to that effect, under the Best Partner program that we have with Singapore Airlines, we're going to continue to work with our key MICE agents. In fact, recently we organized an event called Dreamtime, where we had top 10 corporates, top 10 MICE agents from India who participated in it. Uh, we intend to work closely with the corporates as well as with our airline partners and our MICE agents to organize various events to ensure that Australia's attractiveness as a MICE destination stays right up there. We also have an interesting program called a Bit Fund program, where we try to support corporates in the form of subsidies and incentives at the time of bidding stage, so that we swing their decision in our favor, and with direct connectivity and speed and ease of getting a visa and those you know factors around world-class banquet and convention facilities and the cultural ties thanks to cricket and MasterChef Australia. I guess there are enough reasons for Indians to think to consider Australia as a great incentive destination, and I guess we would like to maintain the top ranking in terms of consideration and visitation for Australia from a MICE perspective.
And do you have a set goal of that, you intend to attract this many tourists from India to Australia?
Well, Peden, we always believe in exceeding expectations and exceeding our targets. So we don't believe in setting goals; we believe in exceeding them. So our endeavor will also always be to surpass what we've achieved in the previous year, and maintain that highest market share in all the segments that we operate in.
Okay. Nishant, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for providing insights into Tourism Australia's work and the developments in Indian tourism to Australia.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Peden. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
This has been the Skift India Travel Podcast. Thank you for listening.